And it begins. Alright, you guys, so I just wanted to take a second. I've been out here working in the garden today. At the moment it's not raining. It's been raining and raining and raining, which is great because the garden loves it. I mean, look at this. However, I am going to have a jungle to mow by the time this all dries out, and I don't know if it's going to rain again, but while I have a moment and it's not raining, I just want to talk to you real quick about something. I get a lot of questions about pest control and what I do to control the pests in the garden. This year I had kind of changed things up. For the first time, I preemptively treated all of my garden beds with beneficial nematodes, and I got what was called the triple threat. It was 3 different varieties of the nematodes, and each one helps with different things. And if you use all 3 varieties of nematodes, you're going to get a wide spectrum of help when it comes to the pests that you're dealing with. And I will tell you that so far my evaluation of that is, I think it has helped. I'm here in Garden Zone 7B, Northern Alabama. We've got every pest known to man living here in Alabama pretty much. If it eats gardens, you're gonna find it here. And I will also say that normally, you know, here we are, it's almost mid-June. Normally, I've been heavily dealing with pests long before we get to this point. I mean, especially like say my bean plants, for instance. I've normally got cucumber beetles, Mexican bean beetles. I've usually got those things just eating them as fast as they come out of the ground. You'll have to pardon. I've got some company over here. But so, yes, Amos. But so far this year, I have had barely any pests to deal with. Today I have seen a little bit. I had some squash bugs back here behind me. So you'll often see me out here in the garden with at least one glove on, because as get in there tough as I am, I still think it's gross to handle most bugs. So when it comes to like catching the squash bugs and things like that, I'm gonna do it with a gloved hand. I just walk around the garden and I have a jar of water, soapy water, and when I see a squash bug, I snatch it off, I throw it in the jar. And that is what I do for Japanese beetles. Any kind of harmful beetle that I find, I'm just going to pluck it off, throw it in the jar. If there is something that's a little bit more out of control, like for instance when the Mexican bean beetles hit, there's usually way more than you can possibly pull off by hand, and they're fast and they just fly away when you're getting close to them. So in that instance, it does warrant me spraying something in the garden. However, when I use spray, I spray it right at dusk, just before dark, you know, after official sunset, because at that point there's minimal bees around. At that point, any honeybees around have usually returned to their hives, and so it lowers the risk of harming bees. The other thing that I do when I do use spray is I will focus my sprayer on the leaves and the stems of the plants, and I will do my very best to avoid getting any kind of spray on the blossoms and on flowers, just because that's where the bees spend most of their time, and I don't want to run the risk of doing harm to them. So I'm very strategic in where I place the spray, where it goes. The other thing about the spray is it is very important to know what kind to use. Now, I'm really serious about using things that do as little harm as possible. I like things that are, you know, rated, OMRI rated for organic gardens, for organic use. And so that is my go-to always. Some of the things that I will use as an example are spinosad. I will use neem oil, which is very, it's a really popular one. But in the process of doing my gardening, I actually have 2 smartphone apps that I use. When it comes to using spray or using something to control pests, you really got to know what it is you're dealing with. If, say, you're using neem oil and it's doing nothing to help, well, maybe it's because neem oil doesn't work on the bug that you are trying to get rid of or get control of. And so what I do is I take a picture of the bug, and then I have an app, and it is called Picture Insect. And there is a few different apps that do this. This is the one in particular that I use, and now it's not going to load because I'm in a dead zone. Anyways, I'll take some screenshots and share it right here and share about it. So basically, I just take a picture of the bug that I'm trying to identify. Once you've taken the picture and you've got it in the little square in the frame there, you click next, or the little check mark, and it identifies exactly what it is. This is such a great tool, and there are other apps that do that. This one, to me, has been the most accurate. Now, it isn't a free app. It does cost a few dollars. They have a monthly subscription or an annual subscription, and to me, it is worth it because, one time I was walking through the garden and I saw this gnarly looking beetle, and my first instinct, of course, would be snatch that thing off and throw it in the jar of water, but I didn't know what it was. And by using an app like that, I was able to identify it and realize, oh, that's an assassin beetle. An assassin beetle. Those are a wonderful, beneficial bug because, just like the name sounds, they eat other bugs. They eat pests. They're fantastic. Just like praying mantises, just like ladybugs, those are wonderful. And you can actually order assassin bugs from online stores like Arbor-Core Organics, where you can get ladybugs and praying mantises and all sorts of things. So the first thing that I do when I see any kind of bug, beetle, whatever it is, if I don't already know what it is, I get that app out, I identify it. Now, the app does not tell you if it's bad for gardens. It does say whether it's harmful or not to humans. But once you've identified it, then you can just do a quick search and, search for the name of that bug. Is it bad for gardens or something like that? And within a few seconds, you'll have your answer. And so that has been a benefit to me. Anytime I see anything, if I don't know what it is, I'm going to identify it so I know whether it is something I need to be concerned about or if I can just live and let live. Another app that I use, and I don't just use in the garden, but I use all the time, if I'm going for a walk in the woods or if I'm weeding my garden and I come across something that I don't exactly know what it is, that other app is called Plant Snap. And that is another app that I use frequently. I've always got it on my phone. And with that one, just like the bug identification, you can identify the plants that you have growing in your garden, in your yard, in the woods, wherever it is that you come across it. And that has been such a great tool because, you might come across something and you think it's just a weed, but once you've identified it, you realize, oh, this actually, it might be a weed because it's growing where I don't want it to be, but this is a great plant because it has a medicinal value, or it's edible, or something along that lines. And so I love to walk out here and just look at the plants and identify everything that's growing out here. And using PlantSnap, I've been able to do that. Now, it is not 100% accurate. Sometimes I have come across a plant and it'll identify it and I can tell it's not the right one. And so I'll try again, get a better photo where you can maybe see the leaves a little more crisply. And I think that one is actually a free app. I don't think I've paid anything for that one. But it does often help you, or at least point you in the right direction once you've identified something. And then you can always take that suggestion of what that app thinks it is, do a little search and confirm it. You know, I always like to double check, especially a plant, because there's a lot of things that look very similar and you want to make sure you've got the right thing. Like Queen Anne's lace looks a whole lot like another weed that grows around that's poisonous, whereas Queen Anne's lace is totally edible. So it's very important to know the differences between them. So I'm going through and I am pruning my tomato plants, pulling off the suckers, doing a little bit of weeding while I can. I think some of these garden beds out here, the weeds are just going to go crazy after all of this rain that we've had. They're going to be like, yes! So besides mowing, I think I'm going to have a lot of weeding that's going to have to happen here probably next week or whenever it decides to stop raining. Alright, so I have to tell you, bless you, I mentioned the other day how I was absolutely in love with my Birkenstock sandals, and the same day I had filmed that video, I had gone inside and ordered some more. These are the waterproof, you know, wet weather types of ones. I think perfect for out here in the garden. However, last week I had a friend of mine over and we were walking around, and of course I had my sandals on and everything, and I made the comment about how, you know, I love these Birkenstock sandals. However, I have one complaint, and that is because they have this form-fitting sole that fits, you know, the arches of your feet and everything, how it creates like a vacuum, and before I could even finish my sentence, she says, it gives you 40 feet. I'm like, yes, it gives you 40 feet. So I cannot tell you how many times I have been walking through the garden and yeah, because it is such a perfectly formed fit, it gives you 40 feet, especially these wet weather ones. Yeah. Alright, well, it has started raining again, and the radar shows a massive downpour coming. So I think I will go ahead and wrap this up for today. I really hope tomorrow is the day I'm supposed to film my weekly garden tour. I hope the weather holds out and I get to do that. Otherwise I may have to skip a week for the garden tours. So, can't control the weather. You can control a lot of things around here. Can't control the weather. I will put the information about the name of those two apps again that I use in the information underneath this video if you are curious about those. So, that is it for today. Thanks for hanging out with me here again at the homestead. I will talk to y'all next time.